I want to share with you once again, as I have a couple of times over the past 30 years, the 14 defining characteristics of fascism, because I'm very concerned, as you know, if you're a regular listener to this podcast. I feel that we truly are on the downward slope of our attempt to be a democratic country here, and democracy, around the planet is disappearing. And this concerns me. I know it concerns you too. And I see this drift toward fascism in this country, in countries in Europe, countries in Asia, South America. And to say the least, it's very upsetting. So I thought I would just reiterate these 14 defining characteristics of fascism. Number 1, powerful and continuing nationalism. Fascist regimes tend to make constant use of patriotic mottos, slogans, symbols, songs, and other paraphernalia. Flags are seen everywhere, as are flag symbols on clothing and in public displays. Number 2, disdain for the recognition of human rights. Because of fear of enemies and the need for security, the people in fascist regimes are persuaded that human rights can be ignored because of need to ignore them. The people tend to look the other way or even approve of torture, summary executions, assassinations, long incarcerations of prisoners, and so forth. Number 3, the identification of enemies or scapegoats as a unifying cause. The people are rallied into a unifying patriotic frenzy over the need to eliminate a perceived common threat or foe, racial, ethnic, or other minorities, liberals, communists, socialists, terrorists, and the like. Number 4, supremacy of the military. Even when there are widespread domestic problems, the military is given a disproportionate amount of government funding, and the domestic agenda is neglected. Number 5, rampant sexism. The governments of fascist nations tend to be almost exclusively male-dominated. Under fascist regimes, traditional gender roles are made more rigid. Opposition to abortion is high, as is homophobia and anti-gay legislation and national policy. Number 6, controlled mass media. Sometimes the media are directly controlled by the government, but in other cases, the media are indirectly controlled by government regulation or sympathetic media spokespeople and executives. Censorship, especially in time of war, is very common. Number 7, obsession with national security. Fear is used as a motivational tool by the government over the masses. Now, here's the last 7. Any of these strike a note with you? I know they do. Number 8, religion and government are intertwined. Woo-hoo! Governments in fascist nations tend to use the most common religion in that nation as a tool to manipulate public opinion. Religious rhetoric and terminology is common from government leaders, even when the major tenets of the religion are diametrically opposed to the government's policies or actions. Number 9, corporate power is protected. The industrial and business aristocracy of a fascist nation often are the ones who put the government leaders into power. creating a mutually beneficial business/government relationship and power elite. Number 10, labor power is suppressed because the organizing power of labor is the only real threat to a fascist government. Labor unions are either eliminated entirely or are severely suppressed. Number 11, disdain for intellectuals and the arts. Fascist nations tend to promote and tolerate open hostility to higher education and academia. It is not uncommon for professors and other academics to be censored, or even arrested. Free expression in the arts is openly attacked, and governments often refuse to fund the arts. Number 12, an obsession with crime and punishment. Under fascist regimes, the police are given almost limitless power to enforce laws. The people are often willing to overlook political abuses and even forego civil liberties in the name of patriotism. There is often a national police force with virtually unlimited power in fascist nations. Number 13, rampant cronyism and corruption. Fascist regimes almost always are governed by groups of friends and associates who appoint each other to government positions and use governmental power and authority to protect their friends from accountability. It is not uncommon in fascist regimes for national resources and even treasures to be appropriated or even outright stolen by government leaders. And number 14, fraudulent elections. Sometimes elections in fascist nations are a complete sham. Other times, elections are manipulated by smear campaigns against or even assassination of opposition candidates, or the use of legislation to control voting numbers or political districts, or the boundaries of political districts, and the manipulation of the media. Fascist nations also typically use their judiciaries to manipulate or control elections. 14, defining characteristics of a fascist state or a state moving toward fascism. Clearly, the United States fits very comfortably into this model. You know this as well as I do. But the number 13 is so much like Putin in Russia. The fascist regimes almost always are governed by groups of friends and associates who appoint each other to government positions. They steal the national treasury. They take national resources. That's the oligarchs that run Russia. And we have them here, too. They're just more blatantly entrenched in Russia than they are in the United States, more openly entrenched in Russia. Here, it's a little bit sneakier. And then the fraudulent elections. Oh, my God. Both Russia and the United States, and other countries too, but I'm focused right now on Russia and the United States. Both countries, Russia and the United States, are involved in the establishment. Russia, it's fully established. Here, it's getting to the point, given the fascist Christians who used to be the Republican Party and the way they are manipulating the state election laws, as well as federal election laws, irrespective of what the federal government decides to do. But it's happening here across the country. Elections are manipulated by smear campaigns, of course, or even assassination of opposition candidates. That hasn't started here yet, as far as we know, but it's on the cusp. And then the use of legislation to control voting numbers or political district boundaries. I mean, can it be more obvious what the fascist Christian party in this country is doing where it concerns the 14th defining characteristic of fascism? Well, there you have it. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.